January 1962, the Mekong Delta shimmered beneath a pale tropical sun. From the ground, the jungle looked endless, a green ocean hiding 1,000 shadows. Viet Cong patrols moved silently through the undergrowth, invisible to the helicopters that thundered overhead. Then on that morning, something new appeared in the sky. A slow, twin-engine C-123 provider flew low over the treetops, its silver belly glinting in the light. From its wings, a mist began to spread, fine droplets falling like rain. Within minutes, leaves curled, vines blackened, and the forest's deep green turned the color of rust. Below, U.S. advisors watched in awe. They had not fired a bullet, yet the jungle itself seemed to surrender. It was the first mission of Operation Ranch Hand, the moment America learned how to fight an enemy hidden by nature itself. By the early 1960s, the war in Vietnam was not a clash of armies, it was a struggle against the land itself. The Viet Cong used the jungle as armor. Dense bamboo, towering teak, and tangled vines swallowed entire regiments. Ambushes erupted from nowhere, then vanished into the green. Convoys along Highway 13, the Thunder Road, were struck and gone before gunfire could echo. American and South Vietnamese troops discovered that even victory meant little if the enemy melted away unseen. Helicopters, sensors, and scouts could not break the jungle's grip. The North Vietnamese army turned terrain into its greatest weapon. Every leaf was cover, every root a trap. At the same time, U.S. military planners faced a dilemma no conventional doctrine could solve. Superior firepower meant nothing when the enemy refused to stand and fight. The Pentagon needed visibility, literally. It was then that scientists from the Advanced Research Projects Agency, ARPA, and the U.S. Air Force proposed a radical idea. If the jungle could not be defeated, it could be removed. What began as a modest test outside Saigon soon gained momentum. If successful, defoliation would expose ambushes, clear landing zones, and choke off the hidden supply arteries of the Viet Cong. The plan was bold, scientific, and for its time, visionary. The operation was given a calm, almost pastoral name, Operation Ranch Hand, but its mission was anything but gentle. In 1962, the U.S. Air Force's 309th Air Commando Squadron began modifying C-123 provider transport planes for a new role. They were equipped with spray booms under the wings, capable of releasing thousands of gallons of chemical defoliants in a single flight. The most potent of these mixtures was Agent Orange, a blend of herbicides designed to strip trees of their leaves and destroy crops that fed enemy troops. Others, Agent White, Agent Blue, and Agent Purple, followed, each tailored for a specific target: rice paddies, dense canopy, or roadside vegetation. Each mission was precise, planned like an artillery strike. Pilots flew just 150 feet above the ground, maintaining steady altitude through turbulence, gunfire, and tropical storms. They followed grid patterns mapped by reconnaissance aircraft and directed by spotter planes orbiting high above. The logic behind it was simple. The Viet Cong relied on the jungle to hide their routes, caches, and tunnels. Remove the jungle and you remove the enemy's greatest ally. By late 1965, Ranch Hand was spraying over 800,000 gallons a month, covering regions from the Iron Triangle to the Mekong Delta. For the first time in the war, U.S. command believed they could see the battlefield clearly. To many in Saigon's war rooms, it was proof that American science could solve what tactics could not. To others, it marked a dangerous line, a war not just against men, but against nature itself. At its core, Operation Ranch Hand was the embodiment of American ingenuity, a merging of science, logistics, and military precision unlike anything attempted before. From airbases like Bien Hoa, Da Nang, and Tan Son N Hut, the C-123 fleet operated like clockwork. Each aircraft carried nearly 1,000 gallons of chemical mixture. Maintenance crews worked through the humid nights, loading tanks, calibrating pumps, and sealing spray lines that would stretch under the wings like silver veins. Flights began before dawn. Pilots wore oxygen masks, not from fear but discipline. They flew at dangerously low altitudes, just above the canopy, where a single burst of small arms fire could shred the fuselage. Yet they pressed on, guided by nothing more than maps, compass bearings, and the faint shimmer of morning mist. The operation's brilliance lay in its scale and synchronization. Thousands of square miles of vegetation could be neutralized in weeks. Roads once lost to ambushes reappeared. The Mekong's serpentine banks, once shielded by thick jungle, became open channels for U.S. gunboats and supply barges. From a military perspective, the results were striking. Entire Viet Cong base zones, like those in the U Minh Forest and Cu Khai District, were suddenly exposed. Where the jungle had once been alive with insects, birds, and shadows, there now stretched bare earth and skeleton trees. To American commanders, it was proof of progress, an invisible enemy finally made visible. The airmen of Ranch Hand even adopted a sardonic motto that reflected their mission's brutal clarity: only we can prevent forests. And in many ways, they were right. For a time, the United States had achieved something few armies in history ever had: control over the battlefield's very environment. On the ground, the transformation was immediate and shocking. Villagers in the Mekong Delta spoke of mornings when mist turned orange and the air itself seemed to burn. The lush canopies that had shaded their homes vanished within days, leaving cracked soil and dead rivers where fish no longer swam. For U.S. infantry patrols, the results were tangible. Roads once feared for ambushes became open paths. Aerial visibility improved, and helicopter gunships could now strike targets previously concealed by the dense canopy. Soldiers described it as the first time we could see them before they saw us. But for the Viet Cong, it was something entirely new, a war they could no longer predict. The jungle that had protected them was turning against them. Hidden rice caches shriveled, tunnel entrances collapsed as the topsoil eroded. In letters intercepted by U.S. intelligence, NVA officers complained that the trees have died and the spirits of the forest have left us. Even among American ranks, however, unease grew. Pilots returning from low-altitude runs often watched the landscape below turn gray and silent: no movement, no sound, just devastation. A few wondered aloud if the cost of visibility was too high. Yet in the thick of the campaign, such doubts were buried under urgency. To many on the ground, Ranch Hand wasn't cruelty, it was survival. Every cleared acre meant fewer ambushes, fewer mines, fewer letters home that began with the words, "We regret to inform you." Still, whispers of concern spread through command posts and Washington offices alike. Reports from medics and aid workers hinted that the chemicals were more dangerous than anyone had predicted, but those warnings would come later. For now, in 1966, the mission continued, larger, faster, and deadlier than ever. By 1966, Operation Ranch Hand had evolved from a limited experiment into a central pillar of American strategy. The air over South Vietnam roared with the constant hum of C-123 engines. Each sortie laid down miles of chemical trails that shimmered in the tropical heat. From above, the results looked almost mathematical: neat rectangles of dead foliage carved into the once endless jungle. But what looked orderly on a map felt apocalyptic on the ground. During one major campaign along the Saigon River corridor, aircraft formations flew in tight lines, releasing over 30,000 gallons of Agent Orange in a single day. Within a week, an entire Viet Cong stronghold vanished beneath a barren haze. Gunships swept in next, raining rockets on positions that for years had been unreachable. American infantrymen who later advanced through those zones found a battlefield transformed. Where ambushes once erupted from every shadow, there was now open ground. Helicopter pilots who had once feared the narrow tree gaps now reported unprecedented freedom of movement. The Iron Triangle, once a symbol of Viet Cong resilience, began to crumble. Supply routes disintegrated under exposure. Snipers had no canopy to vanish into. Commanders in Saigon finally saw measurable progress. Terrain once considered unconquerable was being reshaped, stripped, and owned. But each success demanded more and more sorties, more chemical loads, more daring. The Viet Cong adapted by digging deeper, while American command believed that complete defoliation would force the enemy into the open once and for all. In the skies, pilots spoke of flying through green fire, the spray mist reflecting the sun like burning light. And though they didn't know it yet, those shimmering clouds would leave a mark far beyond the battlefield. By 1967, Operation Ranch Hand had reached its peak. Nearly 30 C-123 aircraft flew constant rotations, supported by tankers, recon planes, and weather scouts. Over 500,000 acres of jungle had been stripped bare. From the Pentagon's perspective, it was a measurable triumph. Ambush frequency dropped, convoy routes reopened, and aerial reconnaissance now penetrated deep into previously forbidden zones. But beneath those numbers, a quieter reality was forming. Reports from ARPA scientists and medical teams stationed in South Vietnam began noting unusual symptoms: rashes, coughing fits, failing crops. Cattle died in cleared areas and water buffalo refused to graze. The jungle's silence became eerie, almost unnatural. Meanwhile, the Viet Cong, though stunned, adapted faster than expected. They carved deeper tunnels, shifted routes through Cambodia, and turned the lifeless clearings into sniper fields. They no longer needed the trees to fight, only patience. Then came 1968. The Tet Offensive erupted like a thunderclap. Cities once thought secure were under attack, and for the first time, Americans questioned whether control of the jungle had ever meant control of the war. ranch hand had stripped the land, but not the will of the enemy. Still, for many soldiers on the ground, the operation remained a symbol of what America could achieve, not just through force, but through engineering, logistics, and resolve. It proved that no terrain, however hostile, could completely conceal those who fought against freedom. As jets roared over the smoldering landscape, one Air Force report summarized the campaign in a single line: "The jungle is no longer our enemy, only the war itself remains." The victory was clear from above, but its shadow stretched far beyond Vietnam's borders. By late 1968, the defoliation campaign had achieved what U.S. commanders once considered impossible. A war once fought in darkness now unfolded in daylight. Aerial surveillance improved dramatically. Convoys from Bien Hoa to Pleiku moved without constant ambush. Helicopter insertions could land in open fields rather than cut new clearings under fire. For every acre of jungle that vanished, the U.S. Army gained visibility, precision, and safety. In purely military terms, Operation Ranch Hand was a triumph of applied science. It combined chemistry, aviation, and logistics into a coordinated force multiplier. Between 1962 and 1971, nearly 20 million gallons of defoliants were sprayed over 4.5 million acres, an industrial-scale reshaping of terrain unlike anything in modern warfare. For the soldiers who patrolled those zones, the difference was immediate. They called it breathing space. The fear of ambush lessened, the terrain opened, and the war, for a brief time, felt winnable. Yet even amid that sense of control, questions lingered. The land was changing, but no one yet understood the cost. As reports of success reached Washington, new voices began to question the unseen toll. American advisors and Vietnamese civilians alike described strange illnesses, skin burns, dizziness, miscarriages that no one could explain. The same chemical fog that exposed the enemy also seeped into rivers, rice fields, and drinking wells. By 1971, public concern had turned to outrage. Journalists uncovered documents showing that the herbicides contained dioxin, a compound far more toxic than first believed. Veterans returning home noticed health problems among their families. In Vietnam, entire regions remained barren, their soil stripped of life for decades. Yet even amid growing controversy, Operation Ranch Hand remained a testament to what the U.S. military could achieve when technology met resolve. It was proof of dominance, an operation that rewrote the rules of environmental warfare. But the price of that dominance could not be washed away. The jungle was gone, the war was changing. And history would never see green the same way again. In the end, Operation Ranch Hand revealed both the brilliance and the burden of American power. It proved that no force on earth could match the nation's capacity for organization, innovation, and reach. In a war fought without front lines, the United States had found a way to control the uncontrollable, to bend the very landscape to its will. But that control came with echoes that never faded. The jungles of Vietnam became a mirror, reflecting what happens when the machinery of progress touches the heart of nature. For a brief moment, the skies belonged to America, and even the earth itself seemed to obey. Yet beneath that triumph lay questions that science could not quiet and victory could not erase. Today, the legacy of those orange skies endures in memory, in soil, in history books written with equal parts pride and regret. The Viet Cong never expected the jungle to burn like that. And perhaps neither did America.